Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me at this Bookselling University BSU Course 118. This is on how to find your readers. We're not only going to cover how to find your readers, but I'm going to cover in great detail why you want to find your readers, what finding your readers will do for you, and how it's going to improve your sales and improve your business overall. My name is Amy Collins. There's not much to say about me other than the fact that I have sat in every corner of the book office. I sat behind the buyer desk. I was a buyer for many years for a chain of bookstores in upstate New York. I've been a sales rep. I've been a sales director. I've owned a distribution company. I've sat in the lobbies and in the main offices at all the big chains and in teeny little bookstores. I have worked with librarians. I've worked with corporations. And I'm a big fan of what APSS and Brian and the group is doing here with this Bookselling University. And I'm very honored that they've asked me to come and share a little bit of my overview on how important market research is. I told you that I would explain the how and the why, and I will. Market research is a big, scary term. Market research is a phrase that freaks some authors out because they believe that it's going to cost money and that it's too difficult to take on themselves, and none of that is true. Market research, it just takes a little bit of time and a little bit of willingness. And why you want to fully understand your market, there's a myriad of reasons. But the first and most important thing is that your job as an author, whether you're an author who's publishing your book yourself or if you've been published by someone else, your job as an author, now that your book is out, is to market and promote and sell that book. And that is going to be your job as an author for the rest of your book's life. You've heard this before, but it's a little like having a kid. You wouldn't go to the hospital, have a child, and then think your job was done. Well, too many authors go to the hospital, give birth to a book, and then they think they're done. And that's just not how it works. You got to raise that kid, and you got to raise that book. And that's a little bit of what market research is about. It's finding the best schools, understanding and reading all of the blogs and the information and learning about your industry and learning about your readers. It's important as an author, if you're going to be promoting your book and selling your book, which successful authors do, it's important that you find and understand your readers. Who are your readers? Who are your potential readers? Where are they? Where do they shop? Do they buy books? That's a big question that a lot of people don't think to ask until it's a little further down the line. I know a lot of wonderful authors who wrote terrific books on topics, but they found out after writing the book that their readership prefers videos. Their readership prefers new magazine articles. They don't actually buy books. What they do is they get the information through different blogs or different television shows. So market research is very, very important. And we're going to spend the next hour going over how to find your readers, how to use that information, and how to increase your sales with that information. Verso Digital, a fantastic organization, surveyed a little over 2,100 readers last year. They went and had a very in-depth one-on-one interaction with well over 2,000 readers and found out how new books are purchased. The bottom line, they got a lot of data from this study, but the big thing that they unearthed was that new books are purchased and decisions are made about new books in a person's household 49.2% of the time based on personal recommendations. By far, the largest, the biggest factor that impacts a book sale and whether or not a book will be purchased is a personal recommendation from someone that the new reader knows, followed pretty closely by bookstore staff recommendations. So if you add those together, we're looking at 80% of new books are purchased. 80% of books that were purchased in the last year, according to this study, happened because somebody recommended the book. Finding new readers and convincing readers to buy your book it's our job as authors. We We always need to be finding new readers, and we need to be convincing them that our book is worth their time. But how awesome would it be if we could get some help? If the other people who'd read our books, and if even bookstore and organizational leaders and HR, the heads of HR who are recommending books, wouldn't it be nice to have some help, to have other people recommending our book? That's what this next hour is all about. So we're going to start by enticing new readers, by explaining to our existing readers what our book is like and how they can help. And so let's go through what I mean by this. People want to associate your books with books that they already know. So if you put out there into the world, whether it's on Amazon or in an email blast or even on Twitter or on Facebook, that if you put out there that your book is the next Eat, Pray, Love, or you tell people that your book is a little like the British cooking show meets Star Wars. If you mush two very popular items together that are very familiar, that is how we're going to start. We are going to start our market research by coming up with a book, a movie, a phrase, but coming up with a concept that can describe our books in a way that makes people comfortable because they already know what you're talking about. Is your book very similar to the Hunger Games? Is your book the next generation's version of Good to Great? Is your book Who Moved My Cheese, but much, much, much more religious or spiritual based? Give people something that they already understand and they already know, and they're going to be so much more comfortable listening to you and trusting you. I hope that makes sense, because we're going to take a moment now, and I would like you, right in the middle of this class, I'd like you to take a moment, and I'd like you to write down a couple of the books that you think your readers have on their bookshelves right now. Your potential readers, ask yourself, what books are sitting on their bedside table? What books are in their Kindle? What books have they read in the last few years? If you don't know the answer to that question, that's fine. It is. But before you go any further, I want you to hit pause, and I want you to make sure that you can answer that question, because that is a very key question to understand. It's very important to know who your potential readers are and what it is they're reading already. Your book is unique. There's never been a book like yours. I get it. I totally understand. But your readers are reading other books right now. And so what are those books? That's the question I'm asking you. So let's take a moment. We're going to do a little exercise together. We're going to find out who your reader is. We're going to find out if your book is for a narrow topic or for a general audience. Is your book very, very niche for a general audience? Or is it a big, broad topic, but just for a narrow audience? Maybe your book is for men and women across the spectrum, but only men and women who have a particular hobby, or just cat lovers. Your book is perfect just for cat lovers. But maybe your book is a huge, wide-sweeping topic, how to be happy. But it's written only for dentists. Perhaps you have a book on just for dentists on how they can be happy. So you need to first understand whether or not your book has the readership you think it does and what that readership is. So ask yourself, what is the topic of your book? Not the genre. Is the topic of your book to teach people how to be a better leader? Is your topic an entertaining book that is meant to distract and to pull people away from the realities of their life with a little bit of entertainment? Is it a big audience? Have you written a romance novel? And so what you find yourself saying at the moment is, it's a pretty broad topic for a pretty big audience. There's a lot of romance readers. Or have you written a book on how to help parents of small children who are getting divorced to deal with the impending divorce. That's a much more narrow topic. Don't worry if your topic's really narrow. If you've written a very, very narrow topic, that's actually good news, because the smaller the target, the more focused your topic, the more focused your readership target will be, and the easier your book will be to promote. If you've written a book that teaches dentists how to be happy and how not to get stressed out, you know exactly who your reader is, and you know exactly how you want to reach out to them. You know where they are. Trust me, if you've written a book just for dentists, you know a lot about the dental market. So ask yourself, who is your reader? Is your reader a man or a woman? In some cases, it's both, but not at all. If you've written that romance novel I was talking about, it's usually a woman reader. And as much as I hate, and the feminist in me hates saying this, if you've written a book on high-level coding, the stats will tell you that 95% of the coders out there are male. So who is your reader, male or female? How old are they? Do they have any education? Are they employed? Are they parents? Are they married? Get it all down. Who are your readers? Because the more you know about your reader, the more you're going to be able to find out further on in this hour and in this class where they shop and how to find them and how to reach out to them. Who is your reader? When I ask somebody who their potential reader is, 9 times out of 10 they say, well, it's everybody who, it's anyone who. No, your book is not everybody. Your book is not anyone. Your book is a very specific gender and age and marital status and job status. Who is your reader? Get it narrow, because the smaller that doesn't mean that when you're done narrowing down your readership, you can't go back and pick another one. But you want to make it as small as you can. The smaller the target, the easier it's going to be to hit. It's a little different than the rest of the world. And so here's some questions that I would love for you to ask yourself. And one of the things that I'm often prone to when I am excited about a new idea is I will take my own opinion and what I think and think that it's fact. Nobody likes my opinion more than I do. I'm a big fan of what I think. I want you to pay attention to the very human characteristic of assuming that your opinion is actual data, because I fall prey to that. I will often confuse my opinion and my own personal experience with data. So we're going to set that aside, and we're all going to ask ourselves these questions. Number 1, do the people who need your book actually buy books? If you've written a book about how to keep your teenagers safe on the internet from predators, that's a book that everyone needs. That is a fantastic topic. It's a terrific book, and I commend you for writing a book on how to keep your kids safe from online predators. But the studies would show, and you can find them online, and Google's a wonderful thing. We live in a miraculous age. Studies will show that books on that topic don't sell, that the people who need the book on how to keep their kids safe on the internet don't actually buy books on the topic. Apparently, they get that data somewhere else, maybe online classes, perhaps it's YouTube videos. Maybe they just don't want to think about it. There's a million reasons, but I will tell you that a lot of books have been published on that particular topic in the years, and none of them have sold. So I want you to not just assume that because your book is written, that people who need your book will buy a book. You need to go find out if it's actually true. Do dentists who are stressed out actually buy books? Let's go ask them. Do those who read books like yours actually buy them? Is the next question. I know a lot of romance writers, very, very popular romance authors, who are a little beside themselves right now because although the 80s and 90s and early 2000s were very, very good to romance writers, more and more romance writers are moving to libraries. They're loaning books, they're borrowing books, they're loaning books, they're passing them among each other, they're buying them in used bookstores. There are certain genres out there that are losing a huge amount of sales, but their readership is as high as ever. So the next question I want you to ask yourself is, do the people who read books like yours buy them, or do they just read about them? If you've written a book on leadership, it's pretty safe to say that business entrepreneurs, high-level C-suite people do buy books. They buy a number of books on leadership and on success. That's pretty much a no-brainer. You can look at the USA Today bestseller list. You can look at the lists on PW, Publishers Weekly. You can look on Amazon.com, and you will see that a number of books in that genre and in that topic are being purchased every hour. Okay, that's a safe answer. Yes, people who read leadership books actually buy them. But a whole bunch of children's books and a whole bunch of poets right now are finding out that people who read books like theirs borrow them from the library, take them out at school. Poems are being traded like trading cards on Instagram and on Twitter. So people look at what's going on with your genre. Who actually reads books like yours? Who is actually reading books of poetry? Who is reading cookbooks right now? Who are the actual cookbook readers? And here's a second question. Who buys books like yours? Who's buying cookbooks right now? Are cookbooks being purchased by the people who are reading them, or are they being purchased as gifts and given? Do you know the answers to these questions for your genre? If you've written a marital advice book on how to be happier within your marriage, who reads the books and who buys the books? Are women buying them and asking their husbands to read them? Or are men buying them and reading them themselves? You may think you know the answer because we all think we know. Oh, let's be honest. We all think we know the answer. We all think that there's not a man in America buying books on how to be happier in his marriage. But that's just what we think. Do you know that for a fact? Have you done the research? Have you taken a look at the numbers? It's all online. You can find these stats. Another question I want you to ask yourself is, where do your readers shop for books? Do most of your readership, do they spend most of their time at Walmart? If so, is that where they find new books? Is that where they shop for books? Are they on Amazon? Is that where they shop for books? And do you know where they shop for books, or do you just think you know? How are books selling in supermarkets? And if you know who your readership is, if you know that you are looking, that you have written a self-help happiness guide for dentists, then you know who to go ask. You need to go find 7 female, because mainly it's females who buy self-help books. I'll throw that one in for free, guys. There's a little tip from me. You need to find 7 to 10 female dentists and ask them these questions. Do they actually read books? Do they buy books? Or do they just borrow them from friends? Or do they just read about them in magazine articles? Do they shop for books? And if they do, where do they shop for books? And how much do they spend? How much did their last 3 books cost? What books are on their bookshelves? See, if you know who your reader is, then you know who to ask these questions from. And if you don't know who your reader is, if you think your reader is everybody, you'll never get the right answers to these questions. And these are important questions. They really are. This is what market research is all about. And this is what I want to help you get to the bottom of. The more you know and the more information you have, then you are, at that point, you are going to go a long way in escaping the biggest pitfall that most authors have, where they confuse themselves with their readership. I am a 50-year-old woman who will not read a paper book. I love my Kindle app. I only read on my Kindle. If somebody handed me a beautiful hardcover of my favorite novel, I would thank them, I would donate it to my local library, and I would go buy the book on ebook. I can't stand holding books anymore. I don't know why. It's just who I love having all my books with me. I love being in a restaurant and being able to just open any book in my library. It's my thing. I do not read a lot of self-help books, personally. That's just my own thing. But I do read a lot of advice books, business books, inspirational books. But I'll be honest, I don't read the whole book. I read bits and pieces. I mainly read about books more than I actually read books. But here's the thing. I'm not my readership. I may think that because I only read half of books and because I don't read self-help and that every 50-year-old woman, who's a business owner is like me. That is not true. I joke about us all being unique, but we really are. You need to find out who your readership is, and then you need to ask them those key questions we were just going over, because it's so important to not confuse yourself and your opinion with your readership and with the facts. Please do not make assumptions ahead of the data. Let's go get the data. So that's what I did. I created a customer profile, and this is what I'm going to want you to do. My customer profile, it was very different at the beginning when I had assumptions as to who my readers were. I really did. I thought that my readers were novelists and first-time publishers and self-published authors, and I mainly thought that they were, in my mind, they were mainly men who had started their own business and needed help, and because that's who a lot of my clients were. And so I made assumptions. But when I actually went out and started asking, because now I can see on Amazon who's writing my reviews. I see who's tagging my book on Goodreads. I send out questionnaires in my email list. An email list is very important. And I asked them those specific questions. I used SurveyMonkey, run, do not walk. Go get a survey together on SurveyMonkey and send it out to a couple hundred or a couple thousand of your best friends, asking them if they buy books and what they think is too expensive for a book and what their last 3 books actually cost them. And do they actually buy books? And make the survey anonymous. You don't need to embarrass anyone. But I did all that. I sent out surveys. This all was free. It just took a few hours of my time. And I asked a bunch of questions, and this is what I came up with. My key readership is made up of authors, speakers, and experts, business owners, and nonprofits that want to learn how to sell and market their books. PR pros, publicists, publishers, and marketers who need advice on how to get sales guidance for their clients. So I thought most of my clients would be publishers, but they're not. They are authors, but they're mainly speakers and business people and nonprofits who are trying to market their books, but also other people in my industry who have their own author clients that need help. My readership lives primarily in the US, Canada, and Australia. The age range is a little older. It's 30 to 70, and 7 out of 10 of my customers are women. 7 out of 10 of the people who bought my book are women. I know this because I took a look at the names of people who bought my book on my website, at the reviewers on Amazon, on Goodreads, and I sent out, I have over 6,000 people on my email list, a lot of whom have bought my book and downloaded my book. So I asked them, did you buy my book? Do you mind me asking, male or female? How old are you? They primarily buy paperbacks and they shop online. Not one word of that description is an assumption of mine. These are answers to questions that I asked. I know they primarily shop online, mainly because a lot of my clients are business people, and business people are busy. They're not browsing Barnes & Noble for 6 hours on Saturdays the way, maybe a 22-year-old looking for, something to do on a Sunday afternoon is doing. These people are very, very different. So now it's your turn. I got to my customer profile first by writing what I thought was true. So let's take a moment. You can hit pause if you want, but I want you to take a moment and I want you to jot down the characteristics of who you think your reader is. Who is your reader? And when you're done, I am begging you to please go out and find the people that you think who your readers are and ask them these key questions. Do they buy books? From where do they buy books? What books are sitting on their bedside table and how much did they cost? Are they paperback or hardcover? Do they mainly buy ebook or audiobook? Don't forget audiobooks, guys. All we're talking about here is a little bit of time. This costs you nothing. But the amount of data and information that you will garner about who your readership is, that's gold. Because when I'm done, we're only halfway through, guys, but we don't get exhausted. I'm sorry to throw so much at you. But when we're done, you're going to be able to take all of this information and truly be able to focus your marketing. If you think that your readers are anywhere from 18 to 80, you're not narrowing in. I need you to find out who your readers are. Another way to do this is the next part of our class, creating a starter list. We need, as authors, to find out, to identify, and to list a dozen or so books that are similar or have the similar and same readership that you're going after. If you are having trouble identifying who your reader is, may I suggest that you take a moment and instead you create a starter list of books. Now, my starter list is John Kramer's 100,001 Ways to Market Your Book, the Dan Poynter Self-Publishing Manual, Writer's Market, people who have bought Ape, the Guy Kawasaki book, people who bought On Writing, Bird by Bird, and Writing Down the Bones. This is a pretty good indicator. Writers who have bought books about how to be better writers or how to be better book marketers or how to self-publish, they're the people who I want to buy my book. If they bought Dan Poynter's Self-Publishing Manual, or if they're hunting down Mark Levine's book on the legal side of self-publishing, then I'm going to want them to know about my book. But I can't, and this list is so helpful because I now can go and find out who buys these books. So another way to look at market research is not who your reader is, but what sort of books do you want your potential readers to be reading so that you can introduce them to your book. If you've written that same self-leadership guide, then your potential reader owns Jim Collins's Good to Great. If you have written a book on how to be successful, you want people who own all those Gallup books, the Now Discover Your Strengths and the Strength Finder 2.0. That's a great part of your starter list. Go find those books and make a list. If you've written a book for dentists on how to be happy, well, then you might want the Karen Solomon books on happiness. Start a list of what books are being read. And once you have that list, and here's mine, take a moment, come up with a short list, maybe 10, 12. You then can find out who's reading these books and what they're reading. Start with Goodreads. If you go to Goodreads right now and you have written a business advice guide on leadership and on creating, a wonderful organization, then go find Good to Great and see who's reading it. Start pulling their names out of it. Just start gathering the data. How many of them are men? How many of them are women? Now, granted, Goodreads is mainly made up of women. It's just a start. You also are going to want to go to Amazon. You're going to want to see all of those reviewers. You're going to look for best-selling lists on particular topics by using Google. Google is a fantastic tool. Remember I said we live in a miraculous age? Librarians are an amazing resource. What if you'd written a particular, let's say you've written a fictional dystopian YA novel? Do not walk to your local library and ask your local librarian what the most popular and most checked out dystopian YA novels are right now. Get them to help you. Find out what's being read. Booksellers, another terrific resource. They're on the front lines. Booksellers know exactly what's selling. They're the ones who are taking them out every day. If the biggest and most successful cookbook in America is all about paleo and giving up carbs and good carbs and bad carbs, and you've written a terrific, amazing cookbook that falls right in line with the whole idea of, lowering your carb intake and complex carbs and good carbs and bad carbs, don't you want to talk to the librarians and the booksellers who have been selling that book for months? Find out, and you can ask them, is it mainly men or women? Get them to answer a lot of your questions. How old are most of the people who are buying these carb cookbooks? Do they think? Go on Amazon. Look at all the reviews. Click on those reviewer names and get some data. How many are men? How many are women? Are they business owners? Start pulling your knowledge together. There are so many places where you can go online and you can find so much information about it's not your competition, guys. They're your comparables. They're your comparables. They're not your competition. There are so many new books coming out every month that it's hard to keep up. And so here I am making assumptions, and I'm talking about books like Good to Great and Who Moved My Cheese. Well, one of the things you guys may notice, those books are all pretty old. As I said, I'm a middle-aged lady, and I am not my readership. My readership is hipper and more on top of things than that. So where do I go as someone who's still desperately clinging to the Gallup organization, Now Discover Your Strengths? You know, I know what my 5 strengths are because of a book that I read in 2012. Where do I go to find what all the new best-selling books are in my genre? Well, to start, I go to Amazon. You will notice that Amazon editors have a list every month. Best books of February, best books of March, best buddy. Take a look at the Amazon editors' picks. They are so ahead of the curve of what's happening. You also can take a look at the book reviews and at the bestsellers. You see, I just circled it there. You can look at the bestsellers on Amazon, and you can look at all of the Amazon book reviews. Amazon has their own book review team. So go and look. It's a fantastic tool. Start there. Find out what's being suggested. Find out what the best cookbooks of February are. The bestsellers on Audible for sci-fi. What is your genre? Go look them up by category in their bestsellers and more. And please, please do not forget to pay attention to what the Amazon editors are suggesting, because they've got their finger on the pulse. Another tool, another website that I absolutely love is yazif.com. You see, I've just given you the URL right there. If you've written a powerful spiritual memoir that is funny and a little self-deprecating and involves a great deal of travel, well, then you can tell yourself that your book is Eat, Pray, Love, and Wild. That's great. But you know what? Eat, Pray, Love is really old, and Wild's been done. And it's important when you're first reaching out to people that that, yes, you give them the books so that they understand what your book's about. Your book is like Eat, Pray, Love, and it is like Wild, but there's so many more books out there. There's so many more authors that are making a beautiful living with your readership. They have your readership in their back pocket. They are selling thousands of books a month, and you've never heard of them. Why? How do I know you've never heard of them? Because we're human and we can't keep up with everything. And as much as I'd love to say that you probably have your finger on the pulse of every book of your genre, you'd be the only author in the history of time who managed to get that done. So tools like yazif.com are very, very easy and popular to use. Here's a search that I did on one of my books. You may remember that I told you that I was a big fan of John Kramer's 1001 Book Marketing Ideas. So I punched in John Kramer's name, and I came up with a whole bunch of other books that, according to Yazif, Yazif pulls from Amazon, these are where the readers are going. People who bought John Kramer's book also bought the Self-Publisher's Legal Handbook, a step-by-step guide. And that's how I know Mark Levine is so popular. People who bought books, the ones that I thought they were buying, the Dan Pointer books, were also buying Create Space and Kindle Self-Publishing Masterclass. And they're buying a detailed guide to self-publishing with Amazon and how to market a book, 3rd edition. I didn't even know about how to market a book, 3rd edition. Forget that. I didn't know there was a 2nd or 1st edition. I'm a book marketing expert, and I didn't know about that book. I want you to go to yazif.com and punch in a few of the books that you think are a good apples-to-apples comparison for your readers. I'm not saying those books are just like yours, but I'm saying their readers are the kind of readers you want, and you will be able to find, and you can click on any one of these books on Yazif. It'll take you right to the Amazon page, and you can, with their reviewers and with their editorial and book descriptions, you're going to be able to find out so much about your genre and who your market is. You're going to learn how best-selling authors in my industry, like John and like Guy Kawasaki, how did they market their book? What did they say about themselves in their book to garner readers? And you're going to learn. You're going to learn how to position yourself. You're going to learn who your readers are and what they're buying. You're going to find out, much to your horror and dismay, that the basic price of your book, of all your competition, is $3 less than your book, and you're going to wonder what to do about that. Well, that's a different class. But right now, I'm going to teach you, and that's what we're going through, how to get to know your genre, your market, your authors, your bestsellers, and how to find your potential readers. Until you know where your readers are and what they're reading and how they're buying, you have no way of knowing how to market to them. You don't know how to focus your attention, and you could end up wasting a whole bunch of money and a lot of time. I don't know which is more sad, time or money, and both are pretty precious to me. I want you to save that time and money. So some of the things that we're doing here is, as I said before, we're spending some time online. We're going to get a load of the best-selling, like these best-selling lists by category. You can find these on Amazon. You can find them on Goodreads. So Goodreads has something called Listopias still. Listopias were taken off of Amazon, but they're back on Goodreads. And you can find out a whole bunch about people's readership habits by looking at their lists. This one, books about old people. I thought that was hysterical. Once you find your potential readers, you can click. Let's say you find a book that's exactly what you're looking for their readers, and you'll find out that 890 people put it on their bookshelf. Click on their names. And this is how I found out that most of my readers, most of the people who bought my book and who wanted to read my book were women. How old are they? Look at all this data. I even know this woman's birthday, for heaven's sake. She put it right out there online. And here are all the other books that she's reading. Goodreads is gold. It's absolute gold in terms of market research. So what I'd like you to do right now, before we go, I would like you to take a moment and I would like you to grab a pen and list 12 books that your readers have on their bookshelves right now. Can you name 12 books that your readers already own? And if you can't, that's okay. Just list as many as you can. Because what I would like from you and what I'm asking for is for you to start with who your competition is and where your readers already are. When you take the time to find out what your readers are reading and who your reader is, you will then be able to focus your attention on where they shop. I was very surprised to find that most of my readers are actually none of my readers shop for books like mine in bookstores. It's not of interest to them. They mainly buy books like mine at conventions. It's an impulse buy when they're at writers' conferences. So guess what I started doing 2 years ago? I started going to more writers' conferences. I started selling. I now sell between 250 and 300 copies of my books. And when I go to these conferences, it never would have occurred to me that that's where people were. But now, at least once a month, I'm out at events. I travel all over the world speaking at these conferences, and I am making so much money and getting so many more new readers because I found out through my market research that that's where they were buying books like mine. They were taking classes online, just like the one that you're taking now. So I need you to do the same thing. Find out who your readers are. Find out where they shop. Do not assume, please, do not make assumptions that you know where they shop. I need you to go find out. Maybe they don't even buy books. Maybe your content should be broken down into newsletter formats that you can get people to subscribe to. So instead of them spending $15 or $20 on your book, you can get them to subscribe to your data for $5 a month. You'll make a lot more money in the end. There's so many ways that you can cut and slice your readership, but not until you understand who they are. I hope that makes a great deal of sense to you, and I hope you found this information edifying and interesting. If you have any questions or if there's anything I can clarify, I want you to reach out. I know that the Book Selling University has dozens and many dozens of classes that are now available to you. And I'm sure that whatever you didn't get out of this class, you're going to find in the next one. And I have so enjoyed teaching this class for you. And I want to thank everyone at Book Selling University. And I want to thank you for your time and ask that if you need me, here's my contact information, just get in touch.